Hi everyone, this is Sunette, and in this video I'm continuing from my previous video how changing body language complements self-change. And in this video I'd like to discuss an interesting question that was asked by one of my participants. And what they'd asked is whether, the instance of observing someone's changes in their facial features or facial expression and in their general spiritedness or presence or nature of who they are in their body as a whole, whether being confronted with that on a daily basis with various different people, applies to every single person that we come into contact with, meaning that every single person's way and method and technique of responding to their own emotions through their physical body, that every single person is a mirror for ourselves. That was the first question. And the second question that was asked is whether this also applies to both positive feelings as well as negative emotions. Meaning, in having a look at the example I used, where I was faced with changes in my partner's facial features and facial expression while he was emotional, and specifically concentrating on the change in his eyes, his forehead, and as well as his mouth, and how that portrayed, his emotional state in a moment. And that was a direct mirror for me. The context of his emotion, how he physically expressed it, how his body responded to the emotions. I could see me. And that more being a negative example. So I'll also share with everyone a positive example, of observing someone in a positive feeling and how their body responded to the particular positive feeling as opposed to mine. So let's address the first question. First question is in relation to whether every single person you come into contact with is a mirror, is an external mirror of how you also look like, in your facial expressions, facial features, your body language, your gestures, mannerisms, and nuances. And the answer to that is no, not exactly. Meaning that the moment with my partner was unique, in that what made me, or what allowed me to see myself through his body and how his body responded to the emotion that he was in, was the moment I reacted to his face. It was interesting because it's like all my concentration and focus was just on his face, seeing his eyes, his mouth, his forehead, and that made me kind of ask, but why did I suddenly shift all my focus and attention only to his face? I in a way completely shifted from the moment, my own experience, his experience within it all, and just his face stood out in that moment. And that's where I realized, goodness, I was actually looking at myself. And that's why since then, I was having a look at whenever I take someone personally, also just to cross-reference, that it is in fact so. I could see that it was, that when I take something personally that someone says, I do the same thing. My head goes down, I frown, my lips go tight, and my eyes go narrow too. So there is that difference where sometimes I can look at someone's facial features and expressions and only see them in it. There's no particular connection or experience on a personal level for myself. They don't particularly stand out, or nothing of their body language or mannerisms, gestures, facial features really pop out in that moment. So that is the difference that you can also use. So it only has to do with the moments you're with a person and they are very explicit in their emotional responses and reactions on a physical level. And that's also something my partner and I have in common. We're very physical in how we express. So it's been daunting, but also at the same time very supportive, in that it becomes very difficult to hide emotions from one another. we clearly see it, or even the comings of an experience that's been suppressed or held back. We just know. And for those who feel that, for example, they're not so physically in tune with themselves or their emotions, you see, this is what the overall mind-body Innerverse process assistant supports with. It guides you to essentially just shift your awareness, your attention and focus more into and with the body. It's literally like slowly but surely you start embracing your own body and yourself within it, and your experiences, and with that you become more aware of your own body language, facial features, expressions, and ever so slight changes that happens. So that's that difference. Just one more time, it happens in the moment where a person's facial expressions, body language, mannerisms and gestures really pop out at you. You almost react to it because of how much you're focusing on it. You can really see the detail of it. It's like your entire mind and yourself becomes this magnifying glass, that's really looking into the person's physique and physical presentation. So it's in those moments where you can take it back to yourself and just go, yay, that's interesting. I in this moment observe myself in what I look like when I experience the same emotion. But then also to cross-reference, not take it at face value, taste it for yourself. Observe when you find you're in a similar emotion or experience or even feeling, and see how your face changes, your body changes. It's going to only take those fleeting moments of making a decision to, while you're in an emotion, just start practicing not only focusing on the emotion that you're in, but also how's your body changing. You see, this is what you can take with you for this video even, and start practicing into your everyday life, is when you're working on your emotions. This is for those who may have walked a path of getting to know their emotions and feelings and thought more only on a consciousness level. But now just sink yourself in by including your physical body. So when you become aware of an emotion, also become aware of how your body is responding to it. How is your body experiencing it? How have you changed from the previous moment before you were in the emotion to the next while you were in it? And yes, as I said, it also applies to feelings. I could be looking at my sister and her excitement. I even have a memory. Her eyes used to go bright and really twinkle, and this massive smile over her face, the biggest, literally the corners of her mouth almost reaching the side of her eyes. Her eyes would be big and this twinkling would come through, and she'd almost just be this endless fountain of expression, and you couldn't but help also smile and almost join into that abundance of that fountainous excitement. And for me though, in observing that, how I express excitement is more internal. I'm more the excitement kind of bubbles up inside the center of my being, and it's almost like there's so much I'm kind of resistant to to try and express it physically, because it might come out a bit silly. So depending on the context, I mean, with my partner, I can be silly and goofy, and I'll express the excitement, and obviously it also teases me. But in certain social situations, you cannot always express how you'd like. So because you've got to take into account the people, the nature of the event, the relationships, things like that. And so, but interestingly enough, with my sister, depending on where she is, she would add a sound to it. So when she's with people she's more comfortable with, she usually has a squeal, the sound, and she'll jump up and down. But in social context, she'll still have that same, the eyes widen, the smile, You can see her coming through, but she'll just lessen the energy of her expression a bit. But the physical is quite the same. For me, I express the excitement completely differently. But the experience is still the same. So that's just sharing, how you can also get to know when you observe another's facial expressions, body language. You can take it back to yourself and ask, interesting, I observed how this person expresses their emotion. I want to get to know how I express mine. So observe others, when you see they're in a feeling or an emotion, see how their face changes and body changes, and then take it with you, and in a day, just look out for when you're in a similar feeling or emotion, and then check in and go, okay, let me now feel and see how my face is changing and my body's changing. But you've got to sense it and you've got to feel it. And so the more you practice doing that, the more your relationship with your body and the awareness of it starts strengthening. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in videos to come. Bye-bye.